Hey everybody, my next guest is a writer and director who also spent years working as a youth advocate for juvenile offenders with mental illnesses. His latest book, Head Fake, is inspired by the strength and courage of the kids he worked with, and here he is, folks, right now, Scott Gordon. Scott, what's up, man?
Hey, how are you, Don?
This is awesome to
Good.
have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm loving the book, and I'm still in the middle of kind of reading it, and it's fantastic stuff. What inspired you to write this?
Like you said, I worked with kids with high risk mental illness that have been arrested. I worked for the county. It's actually a funny story. I didn't really mean to get into this type of work, but what ended up happening is they needed guys to work with the boys, and it was a predominantly female business. So I had met someone who knew somebody, and they said, "Hey, why don't you come on and work with these high-risk kids with mental illness who've been arrested?" I was like, uh, I'm really not. I'm like, a struggling writer. I was working at a hotel. And I was like, I'm not really equipped for this. And they said, well, why don't you think about it? And I said, well, why me? What would I bring to the table? And they said, well, we need someone who's going to care about these kids. And it was home based. So I got to spend time with them, in their homes outside. We would go shoot pool, we would do all that stuff. And it was really nice, and I realized that if all I had to do was care for them and kind of meet them where I was at or they were at, then I could do it. And it turned out to be years of just for me, unbelievably fulfilling.
Yeah, and I could imagine so. Sometimes you don't find the job finds you, and it's
Yeah.
like a greater force has led you down that road for all sorts of reasons. And when you look back at the path behind you and all the people that you've touched along the way and helped them, that's got to be rewarding in and
Yeah,
of
it's
itself.
so rewarding. I had one of the toughest kids that I worked with, and I was pretty good. One of the things I found out early on was the way to get in and reach these kids was kind of being funny, because I didn't, they didn't really care what I had to say. It wasn't, I didn't have any, insightful stuff that they were so interested in. But if I could get them to laugh, then they would open up and then they would start to share experiences that maybe they wouldn't share with other people. I actually came up with this idea when I was working for the county of doing like an improv sketch, not comedy, but kind of putting these kids in situations and putting them on camera. And this goes back a while. So this was pre everything in our lives being filmed on our phones. So we had,
Right.
we had, a camera, and we would put it up there and we'd say, okay, you're two guys who are having a disagreement on, fill in the blank. And we would film it and we would edit it and we'd put it to music. And it was all kind of very light. And what ended up happening was we did like a premiere, for these kids. We invited their family. We invited, even people that, they had wronged, that had got them arrested, So it was really a great program. And one of the things that came out of it is when you put a camera in front of someone, they become a little bit different. Some become more open, some close down. Well, this one kid who was hysterical. I mean, really funny. His teacher came up to me at the end and said, his high school teacher, and said, I didn't really know that he spoke English that well. I was like, really? I said, yeah, he kind of would kind of half-ass English and only want to speak Spanish. And I was like, I don't speak Spanish. I mean, we get along really well. So it was a really interesting way to get these kids who've been closed down and been arrested and all sorts of issues to really be able to find their own people and open up and do so in a way that that had not been available to them.
I think it says a lot when you could open people up through humor and through comedy or through just, making them laugh. Is that something you always had in your pocket? Like, were you always a funny guy naturally, or is
Yeah,
that something that
yeah.
you tried to do to break through?
Yeah, I was the kid in school that when it was, the parents would come in for the parent teacher day. I always knew it was going to be a tough situation when they got home because, I was always found it way more interesting to comment on what was going on in the classroom than to actually learn anything. And I had, before ADHD, I had what they called a memory disorder, which meant that, I just no matter what situation you put me in, I could not focus. I was definitely always looking for the funny in the situation, even when there was clearly none that was supposed to be in the like, the history class was not really meant for my amusement, but
That's how you get through it. That's how you get through the hard times that, like without, jokes or making yourself laugh or finding the funny within the bad times, like for myself or, people like us, like you, it's I couldn't imagine just dwelling into it and sinking into that
no.
pain. You got to find the humor in there to it almost is an escape route out of it.
Yeah, you see in the book, I know you're reading it now, that it's it really is the humor is what keeps the story buoyant, right? So it's people have asked me two questions, which is what was the idea, kind of for humor in a story about people struggling with mental illness, especially in underserved communities. And also, why in the hell would you put basketball into, you got enough problem putting humor into it. Now you're going to put basketball into a story about mental illness. And one of the things that I discovered was, I didn't want this to be a bogged down story. I wanted it to move. I wanted it to have different pacing. I wanted the characters to bring life to different parts. And I was able to use the basketball season as pace. So if ever there was a heavy moment, I could just shoot out and go to the season and what was going on with the guys.
I love all the characters. Mikey. I assume Mikey is a part of you. Is that your
Yeah,
like
for sure. There's definitely a part of Mikey that's me. It's I mean, really every character has is me in some degree. A lot of these kids are based on kind of an amalgam of different kids that I worked with throughout the years. But Mikey for sure is the one grounded in me because he is the guy, kind of like we discussed at the top, that was commenting on everything and observing everything. And I definitely have had depression on and off, not like these kids, but like kind of like everyone has, a good example being, coming out of COVID.
right?
I
Yeah.
mean, that was a tough time for everybody, but we would, get together on calls and stuff like this and just crack jokes and have drinks. And it was like, it was one of the great things that come out of COVID was I ended up speaking to friends I grew up with back in Jersey who are spread all over the US. And we're like, let's get together. And now that we have this time and have some drinks and catch up and basically talk about, nothing.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing too. Like we're on Zoom right now, and I didn't even know Zoom existed before COVID.
Right.
And it kind of opened up the world to a whole different medium. And there was some positives that came out of that time, like you said, connecting with your friends and kind of getting through it all. And
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
and with Mikey, he seems like he got into his role as the, kind of ultimately the basketball coach, similar to how you got involved in
Yeah.
students. It was kind of like you know, it it found you. You didn't seek it out. It's a job that
Yeah.
kind of came onto you, and it was, the
You
right
know,
man at the right time.
one of the things, yeah, it's a great observation. One of the things that I think is so interesting in that line of work is for me, I definitely got more out of working with the kids than they got from me. Like they fulfilled me and made me look inside um and learn more. And I think they got stuff from me, but there's no question that I got more from them. Um, it's when you connect with someone, especially someone who's going through something, and you're able to get in there, and even if you're not talking about the exact issue they have, but you're going through 180 degrees as opposed to going right in. I think you can really learn a lot about humanity because we're all when you really look at it, we're all so similar. One of the things with this book, and I'm writing about high risk kids who have been arrested with mental illness, and I have so many people saying, "Hey, that character's just like me." A 60-year-old woman, but I'm identifying with Toby, who's a 6'6" black kid who
Right. Anger
who lives in
issues.
a
Yeah.
really rough part of town, who was arrested by the cops. So there's so much commonality when you're talking about mental health struggles.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I worked for a little while back in the day at a nursing home. I was like the floor stripper and waxer guy. But you're around these kind of elderly people and watching them kind of going, into dementia, or some days you come in and you build connections with them, and then all of a sudden they're gone. So it's I think it's similar in the sense of where you say that you got more of them than they got out of you, because those kind of connections and being around that, I feel it gives you I don't know, a different outlook on life, or different outlook on empathy, or it just it just I don't know, it's I carry those people with me in my imagination, with me at all times as well.
Yeah, it's amazing, especially work like that where you're reminded of kind of, not to be morbid, but the short time that we have
Right.
here. It's an unbelievable lesson, like I'm eventually I'm gonna go and I'm gonna write that book. It's like, maybe you should write that book right about now because nobody's promised anything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And that's the thing. You get a lot of people that always talk about that they want to do this and that, and they never do anything. A long time ago, I wrote a short story called "I Never Learned to Play Guitar," and it's kind of similar to that. It's this old guy. He's on his deathbed, and he's like, I just never learned to play guitar. I had my whole life to learn it. I always wanted to learn it. I just never did.
yeah.
So
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, there's a huge lesson in that,
yeah.
right? I mean, why not go out and learn guitar? I love this, and I can't remember who said it, but I just read something. Oh, it was Willem Dafoe was doing an interview, and he said, go out, do something, and try to fail, and see where that gets you. And of course, the interviewer was like, "What? Huh?" He said, sometimes I'll go and I'll look at a scene and I'll say, I'm really gonna fuck this up. Like I'm gonna go and do something absolutely ridiculous. And I think his point was, it's never gonna be as bad as you think it's gonna be. And it might just be great, right? You just don't know. I have a friend of mine who's an actor, a guy named Gil Bellows, and he's doing a show right now, and he is it's um, a TV show, and he's decided that he's going to play this character, and he's going to play kind of against everything, against type, and he's having a freaking blast, and they love it. You know what I mean? So throw it out. Who cares? If you're going to fail, I mean, I wrote a book when not a lot of people read about, but a basketball, there's like so many things in there that are probably not what I should have done, but that was the story that I wanted to tell. And it's doing very well, thank God. But,
Yeah.
I think, it's, you just have to sort of put it out there and not worry about the consequences or looking stupid or failing or any of that stuff.
True indeed, and it's definitely great advice, and something I think that everyone should kind of abide by, because life is too short, life and nothing's guaranteed, and you might as well try to live it every day to your fullest. It's all the cliches, but they're true.
Yeah,
Live
yeah,
each day. It's like as if it's your last,
yeah. It's they're cliches because people have said them for so long because it keeps ringing true for different people, right?
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
So one of the parts of the book where I was like, man, like, is that like where did he get this from? Is this from a real thing? Like with Alvarito, getting when you found him, or not you, but Mikey found him
Yeah.
with the dogs and all of that, getting his face chewed apart. What walk me through that scene? How did you come up with that? Is that any realness to that?
So, so yeah, so the scene is Mikey he's gotten a job as coach. He's still very lost. He's living with his father who really doesn't want him there. And he can't he's anxious and looking for a connection. So he goes to find his friend, this guy named Alvarito, who helped him when he became homeless. And he goes to look for him downtown, and he kind of goes through all the camps that where he might be and can't find him, and he ends up finding him, and he meets a guy who calls him over and ends up seeing Alvarito, and dogs have been unfortunately have had their way with his body, and there's not much left. Um, so, one of the things living out in LA, we have an unbelievable problem with homelessness. I mean, it has gotten so exponentially worse since COVID. And, mental illness and homelessness, go so hand in hand because, uh, you know, it's bad enough to be in a situation where you're going paycheck to paycheck. You don't have the paycheck anymore. You end up on the streets and you're trying to figure it out. Add homelessness to that, and man, you're just not going to be able to get out. And your homelessness, when you're homeless, your mental illness doesn't get better, right?
Right.
I mean, now you've introduced such an exponential amount of stress. So what I did was I really spoke to a lot of people, did a lot of research, and really understood that a lot of the ways that the homeless people are essentially not making it, dying, is not getting not only the mental health care, but not getting care, not being able to have the wherewithal to go if you're having a heart attack, but also there's dogs all over downtown, and a lot of the camps feed the dogs. I was just driving by with my wife the other day. Some squatters were out there, and I think they had 6 or 7 dogs with them, and the dogs were having a blast running around, and they were squatting in this tenement. And so, I think you put this combination together of you're kind of on the dog's territory, right? They're out there living kind of like wild animals. And unfortunately, when you have to fend for yourself living on the street, you're dealing with a very, very tough situation. And that's kind of what struck me in speaking to people about the dangers that you face on the street are so much more than guys like you and me would think they are, right? You think, oh, you have to figure out a way to get food. You have to figure, well, no, you got to figure out a way to survive. And in the novel, I don't know if you got there, but one of the things that Mikey says is, socks, shoes. You can go to sleep, you wake up, someone stole your shoes. Now what are you going to do? So it's like,
Right.
things that are really that you don't think about unless you're speaking to people. And there are really parts of LA that look like Calcutta right now that you're driving around, you're like, how in the hell are we letting this happen? And every politician that runs for anything, I mean, I'm
Right.
talking mayor, governor, who know, principal of the school.
Right.
Everybody has
Right.
to answer to this issue, which is, what are you going to do about the homeless population? And everyone's got a plan. But I'll tell you, I mean, nothing's working, and it's going to have to be someone that looks a hell of a lot smarter than me to figure out how to deal with it. I've heard everything, but nothing that makes a hell of a lot of sense,
Yeah, I
and it's
see.
tough.
I see it on TV, on the news all the time. You see all those kind of tent cities and
Oh yeah.
and all that, and you hear the problems, and and all the money that's been going into this into LA and into California to kind of solve that problem, but it seems to, not be working. It's one of those, like, A, where's the money going? And B, how come, what is the
Yeah.
solution? Is it
Yeah.
like, getting them, I would think it's getting them the help that they need, because we said most
Mhm.
of them are either drug addicts or they're mentally challenged people, and so that they all need some sort of
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, how do you get them the help? And like you said, when there's mental health issues, a lot of them don't want the help. Just to add another layer to trying to help people. I mean, it's a very, very complicated issue.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Do you think, like, with working with these kind of juvenile offenders and mental illness and all that stuff, do you where do you stand on, like, medications like Prozac and things like that? Are those helpful, or are they just like putting on a Band-Aid?
Well, so I had a kid that I was working with, who's probably the toughest kid. And not only physically tough, which he was for sure, but he was tough to figure out. And what happened is they put him on, I think at one point he was on 7 different types of medication. And the problem was they put him on one medication for his bipolar, and he had a reaction. So they put another medication in there. And then they had this cocktail of 7 medications, one trying to combat the other and alleviate symptoms which the other one had. And my uninformed thing was like, take him off, and let's remember what the baseline was, which wasn't great. I mean, which is why. So, I think that there is definitely a place for medication, because some medication is very helpful. I think in a lot of the underserved populations, they are over medicating because there's not enough help. Or in some ways, let's say that these kids have been arrested, they're out, they're back in school. You don't want them to have a lot of disruptions in the classroom. You want them to have the education. So you're medicating them so that there's not these outbursts, but you're putting them in a situation now where they're not present. They're not themselves. They're not present. They're not, they don't really have a shot. And so another complicated issue, I think there is a place for medication, absolutely. But I think that as a society right now, we're overly medicating these kids, which is definitely not an answer.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of in full agreement with you on that issue. But when I was younger, I was on Prozac for depression and stuff like that. I just remember it just made me feel like I was like underwater. Like, I just didn't feel like really in tune with anything. And I didn't like it. Didn't really work for me, I guess. It puts you in like a sedated state, I guess. Just kind
Right.
of, guess, like, just there. So I just didn't like that. And then I went off of it. This is years ago. I went off of cold turkey, and luckily, knocking on wood, I don't know if you could hear that. I've been fine. I've been fine ever since.
That's good. Yeah, I think it's good for especially crisis. When you're in a crisis, it's good to have the option of getting onto some medication to help you get back to yourself. But it's definitely not, I think you can use medication in conjunction with therapy, can help. But I think eventually the plan, unless you have something which is physiologically you need to counterbalance, I think the goal should be kind of to get back to yourself and get off the medication, and as best as you can. But I truly don't have a if listen, if someone's taking some medication and it helps them, I am all for it.
Right,
I
yeah.
just I don't like the overly medicated, because what happens is you lose that sparkle that was your personality, right? The thing that made you you, which is what we need in society, right? Like, we need people to be themselves and individuals, and that's what makes it all interesting. And if you medicate that out of someone, I remember when I was first living in New York in my 20s. and it was Prozac Nation, right? It was all this stuff. And I remember people saying, well, ADHD and different, I mean, that's artist disease stuff. Like that,
Right, right.
take that
Exactly.
away. We're not going to have any more artists if you give them all this medication. We need that anxiety. We need
That's what
we
drives
need
us.
right. We need the Woody Allens of the world for many different reasons.
It's so true. Yeah, because and you see like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Jack Nicholson,
Yeah.
and I think that was a kind of a great perspective on that, and on people who are with mental challenges and mental illnesses and how they cope with it, and do they need medication, and what's the right way and the wrong way to go about it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you thank God they're not doing lobotomies anymore, right? That's
thank God.
I did have someone, and I get these Amazon reviews, which every time I get one, I study it. I wish I didn't, but I study it. And this one person said that it was definitely reminiscent of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and The Great Santini, and which is a huge compliment. But I think that what this person was probably feeling is the there's a certain helplessness that comes with mental health struggles. Like when you're thrilled when you get through the day, right? I
Right,
mean, so
right.
a lot of people don't really have an understanding of what that means. Like you go through your day and it might be a shitty day and your boss gave you a hard time, and you get home and your wife gives you a hard time, and you watch an hour of whatever on TV and you go to bed. But it's a little bit different when you're like every moment you're thinking, man, I really hope I make it today. Like I hope I don't take myself out. I hope, I survive this time. Like I really, that's a whole different thing. And I think that is what Cuckoo's Nest had. And that's the thing that I'm flirting with here, how community and how humor and how being part of something bigger than yourself is what can help you, what can help pull you out of those feelings.
Yeah, and I think that a character like Mikey, by helping these kids, he's essentially obviously helping himself as well in the process, and
Yeah.
mending all of his relationships and things like that. Again, I'm only halfway through, so I don't know what else is in store for
Yeah,
for
it's
good
it's
old
gonna get
Mikey.
cra it's gonna get crazy for poor Mikey. But yeah, I think that's important. I think one of the things that people are taking out of this book is we really, really need connection. Like you gotta wrap people pretty tight, especially kids that are going through this. They can't, it's they need help, right? So, and it's not they need help, they need to see a therapist, right? It's not they need help, their family needs to step up and take care of them. It's their friends, it's their coaches, it's teacher. People got to step up because, you know, COVID, it really introduced a whole new level to mental illness that we're still not over. So,
And like you said, it takes a village to, you know,
yeah,
to and I think a lot of places are doing that. I think you see a lot of like coaches and
yeah,
in these schools that that they really, kind of are there not just to coach and teach them the fundamentals of whichever sport, but also to be there to help guide them, especially in those kind of schools like that are for whether it's lower income kids, and or if it's for actually kids with mental illnesses and things like
yeah,
that. And kudos to all of those people, because those men and women who
absolutely.
do that are definitely heroes.
Yeah, they're helping in ways that, go out and out and out and out and out, right? I mean, it's they're helping it's kind of everyone says, oh, they're creating the minds of the future, but I think they're creating the what's the word? They're creating the tone almost of the future, right? Because
Right.
we're at an important point right now where so many things are changing so fast, right? I mean, look at freaking AI. I mean, don't get me started on AI. They're putting out 5,000 books a day on Amazon written by bots.
That's
I
crazy.
mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But my point is, we really need to wrap the kids pretty tightly now because there's so many things that we didn't have to deal with when we were coming up. Thank God. I mean, really, thank God, right? Because I can't imagine what kind of trouble I'd be in if people were filming me when I was a kid. I mean, I'm sure it would still be haunting me today.
Or just the access to information that
Yeah,
you can get now. Like these kids today are seeing things and learning things that, man, my wildest dreams.
right.
Like you can do that. Like some of the stuff that they're seeing are way too young to see, and it's all
Yeah.
everyone's got access to it on the phones, and but also there's positives to it too. You can Google everything and fact check and all that stuff, but we had to go to the library and go with encyclopedias.
But you
But
you know the kids aren't like, wow, what a great tool. I'm able to go on there and really discover, the meaning of pi and
yeah,
who the best president of the United States was. They're going right for, the craziest type of porn.
yeah, exactly. Seeing the craziest stuff, and then TikTok and
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a whole nother, one of the things that so my book comes out and it gets in like you said, it's on Amazon. It's all so I have people reaching out to me, these influencers with 3 or 4 million followers, and they're like, hey, would you like me to give you a boost, on your thing? And the first time it happened, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, what does that mean? And they're like, for only $175, I can introduce you to 2.9 million people that,
right,
follow me because, I fill in the blank, having nothing to do with anything with my book.
right. It's crazy. This new era opened up all kinds of new opportunities for kids, like you said, like being influencers. Whoever would have known,
Yeah,
and then OnlyFans, all that kind of stuff. It's a wild west still out
yeah.
here with the internet, man.
And they're already so far advanced in their understanding of what that landscape is, right? Because I don't know it.
Yeah,
But you speak to people that are 16, 17 years old, and they have a different take. When you and I were coming up, and you said, "Man, I want to be famous," you meant I wanted to be a famous writer, a famous comedian, a famous actor. I wanted to discover the cure for cancer, whatever
right,
it is.
right,
Now they're like, well, I want to show people my life, me talking with my friends and my mom and what I
right.
shop for. And they're right. They have 6 million followers.
It's crazy. It's so crazy. Yeah, sometimes I look at like to see, all right, who's the top numbers on YouTube or something like that, and you go to it, and it's like a guy trying sandwiches, that.
Right, right.
Or it's a girl with makeup or something like that, or those ASMR videos, but girls just clicking on something, and it's just and people, and you look at the numbers, and you're like, 10 million people watch this.
I know. But you know what? You sort of have to look at it from their perspective. I have my wife showed me a video the other day of this woman who really transformed her face with makeup, and she's like, I got to show you something. I'm like, what is it? And she said, oh, it's this makeup thing. But and I'm like, I don't want to see it. She's like, no, 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 just take a look. So I go over, and she's always showing me videos, whether it be dogs, cats, comedians, whatever it is. And it was pretty freaking fascinating. She did took makeup, and she was a former makeup artist for films, and transformed her face and get sucked in, 15 minutes later. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. What else does she have?
Right. Then you're watching her for hours. Oh, she could become this too. Let me see what that.
Oh, she just put a scar on her face. That's amazing. Yeah. Yes, I would love to watch the Democratic convention, but this is really interesting stuff
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah. You pause the convention so you could you watch some more of these makeup tutorials. And
That's right.
that's
Something
great.
that I have absolutely no interest in, but
Do you like sparkles? I like sparkles.
This book, man, it got a lot of great quotes in here. I just want to read what Rock wrote.
yeah.
So it goes, head fake is about laughter can save us. It's a jab in the ribs, reminding us that even in our worst hour, laughter and connection could be the flashlight in the dark, guiding us towards healing and redemption. That's high praise from Chris Rock.
Yeah, and he's just the best. I mean, you know, I was obviously more than thrilled when I got that. And I know a producer that worked with Chris, and she had said, Chris might really like this. Would you mind if I shared it with him? I was like, yeah, that would be pretty good. So yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of luck um, with and I'm in LA, which really helps with Chris and a guy named Rodney Barnes. I mean, these unbelievably talented writers have really got what I was doing. So that's been great. Even Nick Nurse, who's um, you know, NBA championship coach. I was able to get one to him,
Wow.
and he read it and gave me a wonderful blurb. And of course, when I found out he was reading it, I was so panicked because, I know basketball. I like it. I watch it. I used to play it in high school. But when he was, I was like, uh-oh. But he was very, very kind. Like he got sort of, different people read it, right, from different walks of life. And what he got was he understood how difficult it would be for a rookie coach to take on a team like that, someone who's never coached before, who's going through their own mental health crisis, right? And how he really felt that he could feel the connection of the team and the leadership that Mikey was able to give them in his own way. I'm sure Mikey wouldn't call it leadership, but so and he was kind enough not to call me up if I made any mistakes in basketball. He didn't bring them up. So
Why are you teaching them that? You should have been teaching them this thing. Yeah.
right, yeah. And I did do my homework. I did go back in and I watched a lot of high school basketball just to see kind of what was going on
Yeah.
and it was really interesting. But it was one of the people kept saying, you know, you got to go get blurbs from professional basketball players. And, I would have loved to, but, the truth is it's just not a story about basketball. I mean, it's a part of it. Most of the people that read this and have been giving me reviews have been women that really don't care about basketball. Although with Caitlin Clark right now, I
Yeah.
gotta say,
She's lighting it up.
I'm like not even watching NBA anymore. Like I'm watching her highlight reel. I'm watching what she can do, how she sets up the offense, like her hustle, how she like lets things roll off her shoulders. I'm like, I mean,
She's
she's exciting.
Yeah. She's the
Yeah,
real deal. And
yeah,
it's cool to see that, the Michael Jordan of the WNBA,
yeah.
rise, and we get to witness it.
Yeah, not only witness it, but the cool thing is you have little girls traveling from all over the world to go see her play, which is like so mind-blowing. And this is going to have such a far reach for um God, I mean everything for basketball, for empowerment, for I think a lot of people, the joke is, I don't want to watch the WNBA because they're not the best, the men are better. And the truth of the matter is for me, I watch because I want to see an exciting game, right? I want to see a level of play that is what's the word? It's the
Competitive.
the one thing that she can do is she can see the whole court,
Yeah.
right? And to me, that's like, I mean, that's a crazy skill. Like she doesn't have to look to know where everyone is on the court. And to be able to watch someone do that, I mean, that's really entertaining because it really is someone who's at the top of their game.
She is at the top of her game, man. And when she first got into WNBA, this, early in the season here, I was like, all right, is she gonna choke? Is she gonna be able to handle the
Right.
pressure? Because she had a lot of haters. It's a lot of pressure on her. Everyone was calling her,
Yeah.
she's the savior of the WNBA, all this stuff. I was like, all right, let's see if she could deliver, and she did. Like she came through
Yeah.
huge. Like the girl's amazing.
And I think you can't underestimate the amount of pressure she, I think that there's superstars, like Michael Jordan and LeBron and that feed off that pressure like food. I am not one of those people,
Right?
I would
Yeah,
fold under that pressure in about a second. But to see her have that same, like, the more pressure, it seems like the better she performs. I mean, to me, that's superstardom. I mean, that's the stuff.
that's
That's why they're at the top of the field, and the rest of us are us, right? I think that she's got that, and I think that she's being recognized by LeBron. And I think that must be really exciting, not just for her, but for everyone, right? Because um, you know, I
yeah.
I just think it's so important right now for people that don't think that the WNBA is worth watching. They haven't seen it, right? One of the things that Kobe was doing, I think, was he had a real investment in women's basketball. I don't know a lot. I don't know if it was for his daughter or whatever, but
Right.
he was really bringing a lot of attention to it.
Kobe, you have been a supporter of the WNBA, but what brings you out on opening day?
Well, I mean, continue to support, and we're a big basketball family, and our middle daughter Gianna just loves the game so much. So, here we are to watch them play.
And I think since his passing, it's dipped a little. And boy, I think he'd be pretty freaking stoked to see what's going on right now.
For sure. For sure. And like you said, she's been getting high praise from all of the elite
Yeah,
legends. And yeah, and you wish that Kobe could be here to see this because
yeah,
he's smiling up there in heaven for sure.
yeah.
As a girl, you grow up, you play basketball. You're like, my goal and my ambition is to be a WNBA player. I want to be a champion like Coop. I want to be a champion like Diana.
So now with this head fake, is there any plans of getting this onto the screen? Or there TV series or Netflix or a
Boy,
movie?
I sure hope so. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk, but it's hard to get something done, right? I've had no less than 10 people approach me and say, people that they're not green lighters, but they're people in the industry that people know that said,
Right.
you really should make this into a movie. And I'm like, no, you should make this into a movie. I don't have any power at all. It lends itself very, very, very well to a movie. I think the way that I did the pacing, I've written a lot of screenplays and I've been in that world for a while, so I kind of know when to not let it drag, when to push it, the
Right.
sort of ebb and flow. And so I think it could be really good. And I've had friends, the guy who's the producer of with Will Smith, he did Concussion,
Oh
is
yeah, yeah.
David Walthoff. Yeah, he's an amazing producer. I mean, probably one of the best out there. His thing, he looks at articles in newspapers and he tries to find the best story. And he approached me and said, this would really make a good film. Um, you know, get me a screenplay, and I'm working on one. And
Nice.
but it's hard, right? Because he had said, oh, HBO is looking for some feel good stories that this could be right for. And I think it's hard because it's such a fickle town out here. I'll give you an example. I wrote a story. I was approached by a friend and another who's now a friend for the idea to write a story called 5150. And 5150 is it's a police code for involuntary commitment due to danger to yourself or danger to others. And so I wrote a pilot based in South Central surrounding this hospital. And I did it and why they wanted me to write it is I did it in the same tone as Head Fake. So it has heavy moments, but it keeps it light in the sense that the doctors and the people that work at this hospital are true to themselves, but also bring in their personalities. So it's some people are funny, some people aren't, some people, it's very complicated world. And those people, and we did go down and do a lot of interviews with the doctors and nurses. They're amazing. They're amazing. And we had gone out and everyone really loved it right up until the point where no one decided to do it. So, it's hard to know what sort of combination gets it done, right? I don't know. Chris Rock liked it, so doesn't that automatically make it a movie? Isn't
Yeah, get him on board.
It'll be shooting next week. But I don't know, who greenlights things anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. It seems to me like there is so many channels right now that are putting out really quality, good streaming shows that it should be easier, but knock on wood. Hopefully that this will. I think it lends itself well, and I think that it's timely in the sense that I think it's a story that it's the right time for people to see. That it's unfortunately, writing a book and putting it out there, you're asking for a lot, right? You're asking for, and thank you for reading it.
Right.
You're asking for people to spend 8, 9, 10 hours in your stuff, right? Which is a lot. So you have to hook them and you got to get them in there, and you gotta make it somehow compelling and important to them, whether it's through the drama or a mystery or the humor or all of it or whatever it is. Watching a streaming show at the end of the night, it's a little bit easier as far as an investment of time, right? I mean, I will literally watch any old damn thing that you put in front of me.
Right.
I will watch it. I'm like, doesn't matter. Like if my wife says, we're gonna watch for the fourth night in a row, we're gonna watch real life murder. And I'll be like, great, let's do it. I'll watch it.
I think what's great about your stuff, the way you write, is that the characters are very kind of colorful, and like every single character that you meet in the story is very like a fun character with a personality, and you know what I mean, and you like them all, even Dr. Tamboni.
Yeah, Dr. T.
Yeah, Dr. T, even though she's a little kind of pain in the ass, you can still see that there's some kind of,
Yeah.
again, I'm only halfway through, so I could feel like there's a glimmer of hope, like she's going to come around at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think if with the story and with those characters, I could really see it, either a movie or definitely into like a series. I could see those, people are going to want to know what happens to these characters.
Yeah, Dr. T is an important character because out of all of them, she's the only one that really knows what the hell's going on, right?
Yeah.
She's really the anchor. And one of the things I like to do in stories is not only give the main character an arc, but give everyone, an arc. It could be a small arc, right? They go from A to B. They don't have to go from A to Z.
Right, right.
And I think that's kind of very, in an idealistic sense, I think it's very true, because if you have a relationship with someone, and it's a true relationship, a buddy or whatever it is, you're a coach, the people under you are going to change. They may not change a lot, but they're going to change because there's influence there that you have. And I think it's important to recognize that, especially when you're storytelling, because, I think when I don't know if everyone does this, but I read a lot, obviously. I always look for characters, whether they be so far, a genius that discovers the cure for something so far away from me, I still kind of recognize something that means something to me, and it maybe is something that's like me, or that I like, or that. And I think it's important in writing and storytelling and in joke telling and all that stuff. You have to be able to move the needle a little bit, right? I mean, I remember when I was younger and watching the comedians come up in the 80s and 90s. I mean, they affected me in such a major way. I mean, I quoted them all the time, everywhere, for anything appropriate or not appropriate. I was quoting them, and just like a little thing like that, I don't remember what I did yesterday, but I could do most of Eddie Murphy's Raw.
Hey, what am I, an asshole? What am I, a fucking jerk? Get the fuck out of here. It's right here, all right?
For you. So it's like, we're affected by things that either stories or stuff that we hear or someone close in our life. And it's important to kind of give almost some homage, or some kind of what's the word, to shine a light on that. Because I think in all the best storytelling, it's so much more important than the movement of the story, which is important, but it's the movement of the characters that are in the story that are the most relatable, and the most, if you're going to change someone in any way, even a little bit, that's where it's going to happen. It's not going to happen, on whether the basketball team wins or loses. It might be great. It might be fulfilling for you either way, but you're not going to, in 3 weeks' time, be thinking about that. You're going to be thinking about maybe a conversation between Mikey and Dr. T, or something that brought up some memory for you that someone else had.
That's awesome. And that's like you said with the characters. I like that you made Mikey a young guy, 25. Yeah. He wasn't like a grown, like an adult. He's, coming of age in his own right. And I like that we do see a dynamic with him, with everyone from Dr. T to his dynamic with Alvarado, who who died, his past relationship with him and what he meant to him, and how he's struggling, his dynamic with his father, his dynamic with Donnie and some of the other students. So I think, like, you talk about the different arcs. I mean, they're everywhere in here, and I think that's awesome. And that's kind of too the pacing of this book is really fun and flows nice.
Yeah, thank you. I think that especially with Donnie, who's really one of my favorite characters, is he's definitely an amalgam of a bunch of kids that I had worked with. And he's really has some he has issues with psychosis, and but he really is an excellent shooter, which is what Mikey's concerned with, right? Like he's like, listen, I know you have psychosis and you got all this stuff going on, but you can literally, nobody guarding you, shoot 98% from the floor. So we should talk about that. And I think that Mikey is learning And Donnie's one of the first ones that Mikey is able to really get in with. And he does get in with humor, right? He says, because Donnie, you're at the point right now where Donnie wants to quit the team, I'm thinking,
Yeah,
right?
right
So he
there. That's
wants to
right.
quit the team, and Mikey's at a point where he can't really let Donnie quit the team because he doesn't have enough players. And
Right.
he just signed on, right? So it's about math at this point for Mikey, right? He needs another player. And Donnie has issues like when Mikey goes to touch him, he freaks out,
Yeah.
which I've experienced, which is very scary to see. It's usually for children that there's two different things can happen. It could be children that have been touched inappropriately, right? It could also be someone who's on the spectrum and doesn't understand that touch. That's very difficult for them to deal with. For Donnie, he's had trauma in his life. But at the same time, Mikey's saying to him, you can quit the team and you can do all this stuff, but don't tell anyone, right? Because I gotta figure this out. And so it's like you're there with Mikey, because one of the things I really strove not to do is I didn't want to do a story where there was a savior, where a guy comes in and he's what everyone needs and everyone learns from him. And we've seen that story, right?
Right. Yeah.
But so what I decided to do is I took a school with high risk kids with mental illness, and I gave them someone way more fucked up than them, right? And put
It's
him
true.
in there to see what would happen. And so, I think as Mikey grows, and you're kind of in the beginning of where he's starting to, is he's in full on self-preservation mode. He wants to help Donnie, but he really wants to help himself a lot more.
Right.
So I think, and Donnie kind of is recognizes it. And one of the things I like the most about Donnie is Mikey makes the mistake of saying to him, if you could just do what I say, we'll win a game this year. And so you'll see from now on, Donnie's like, remember, you promised, and a promise is a promise, and you owe that to me. And Mikey's like, oh, what the hell why did I say it? Of all the things I could have said, I promised this kid something I can't deliver.
Right.
So I think that very consciously going in and not giving them a savior for these kids that we've seen was probably what worked the best of
Right.
what I did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool. So well written. Like I said, I got hooked right from the reading it on Amazon. I was like, oh, what's this? And so I started reading it, and then I'm like, this is awesome, man. And then I was like, I gotta get the book. I reached out to you, and I appreciate
That's
you.
great. I'm so happy you did. I'm so
Yeah,
happy you
me
did.
too, man. This is awesome. What would be the biggest takeaway you want people when they read this book to come away with after reading it?
I think the biggest one for me, and it was kind of solidified by something. I think I even have it up. There's this great writer, Eve Horenchak, who wrote. She's the author of something called One Cut, which is in hers is a story really really great. It takes place in the prison system. It's not a fiction. And it's great. But she wrote, this story will gut you and change your perception of those we deem outcasts forever. And when she said that to me, I was like, wow, that probably is a good way to say what I was trying to do, which is, it's very easy to look at people and say, oh, they're really messed up. I don't want anything to do with them. They seem like they may be dangerous, and one of the things I tried to do is, what if you fell in love with those people, right? What if you really got to see their daily struggle and kind of who they were? Would that change anything for you? And I think that's what I really tried to do, which is say, those people that you're passing on the street that you see and you say they're undesirables. I don't want to deal with them. Let's cross the street. Let's not get out of our car. Let's not help them. To be able to say, you know, they're they're people and they're having a really hard time. And that is, and I always think of this living in LA, like I'm very lucky. Like with one or two wrong turns, if I ended up there, what would I do? Like, how would I get out of that? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't have any answer to that.
Right. Yeah.
And I think the one thing I tried to do is say that, before you cast these people away, maybe you should just take a second and say, these are people that, had dreams and hopes and have a sense of humor, and they're trying to figure it out. And they had some really bad turns that maybe we didn't have, and now they're kind of fucked, right? So that sucks, right? So
Right. Exactly.
I know you don't want to think about that or look at that, but man, it's out there.
Yeah. No, and like you said, that I think it does humanize them and give a different perspective on their struggle, and I think that's important. And yeah, I think it's great what you're doing, and yeah, I hope more and more people get to read this book, get to
Thank you.
check it out. It's really great. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on your website as well.
Yeah, it's Barnes and Noble. It's kind of everywhere out there. If you go to your bookstore and it's not there, tell them to order it. They everyone can order it.
Yeah.
I think that it's kind of it's only been out now for about a little over a month.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, so it's kind of finding its way out there, and it's all kind of unpredictable. But I did have someone reach out to me on Facebook who said that they were in San Francisco, which is, I mean, even worse than LA with the homeless population. And he went out to one of the local stores and was like, I'm not an Amazon guy at all. So go get me this book. And they did, and they brought some on, which was real nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Scott, this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate this. Everybody go check out the book. Scott, tell everybody where they could find you and follow you and all that fun stuff.
So Scott Gordon Books, I'm there. If you just Scott Gordon Books on Facebook, on Instagram, there's a website, Scott Gordon Books, and then you can look up Head Fake by Scott Gordon on Amazon and take a look at the reviews. You could read all of them, but the 1 3 star, you don't need to read that one. That's the cursing one.
Oh.
But yeah, Don, I really appreciate you reaching out. This was very fun, and let me know when you finish it. Let me know, and then let me know when you come out to LA, and I'll let you know when I'm back east.
Definitely, man. I'm looking forward to coming out there. Looking forward to finishing this book.
Yeah,
And hope to see you out there soon. This would be awesome.
great. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks so much, Scott Gordon, everybody.